Greetings, viewers, and welcome to another episode of the Collection Crib. I am your host, Tylercloud. Well, today is May 11th, 2025, and it is the 30th anniversary of the Sega Saturn. I think close to one of my favorite consoles of all time, and so many memories come flooding back. I mean, I first discovered this thing in 2007. Yeah, I know, it was a little late in my life. I mean, come on, I was like 16, 17 years old. I already played the PlayStation, I already played the N64. So the Saturn was really kind of a mystery to me because my aunt owned it, like the only person who I knew at the time who owned the Sega Saturn. And I just thought it was just so cool looking and just really was kind of curious of its games. And then when YouTube came along, I was able to kind of, poke around just to see what kind of the first games the Saturn had. And there was just something magical about it. Just something really amazing. And just the games that it offered and just how amazing the console looks. I mean, just look at that beautiful console. It's just, oh goodness. So back in 2011, I made my very first Digital Dork episode. Yeah, that's what I called it at the time. It was kind of like an angry video game nerd, kind of cranky sleeper kind of gimmick, what I was going for. I mean, come on. Who wasn't trying to imitate the video game nerd back in the day? But that's what I was. I was the dreaming digital dork before Tylercloud's Collection Crib, and I didn't know everything about the Saturn yet. I mean, I only knew about mainly its American games, and it wasn't until like years later that I really discovered a lot more of its library from Japan and just all those hidden gems that were, never really brought to America. But it was 2011 when I made my very first episode for YouTube, and I can't tell you how fun it was. Now, I'm going to show you that video from 2011, and the video is going to be a little grainy. I didn't restore much of it. It's just how I presented it. I was filming games on the tripod, like, what I'm doing right now. And, some of the humor may not be on par, and some of the jokes I had to edit out just because, I was 20 years old and didn't really know any better. But it was still just kind of the first steps of me just going on to the YouTube experience, making videos, and it all began. Okay, it really began with the Atari, but half of that episode is lost. So really, this was my first full episode that I ever made for YouTube, and I'm going to bring it all for you for the Collection Crib aura in my channel. So ladies and gentlemen, after 14 years since my first episode, I'm going to show you all the Dreaming Digital Dorks review of the Sega Saturn. Enjoy.
Previously on the Dreaming Digital Dork.
Not only is it considered to be one of the greatest games of the Saturn, but it is also one of the rarest.
Oh, Sega, you clumsy bastard. You have given us memorable arcade classics and Sonic on the Sega Genesis. Yet you gave us the Sega CD and the 32X add-ons, which is a dumb idea. And not to mention their plugs are big and pointless. And why would Sega go back to cartridges on the 32X when they've already had the Sega CD, which was supposed to be their main focus in the first place? But after the lifespan of the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis were finally coming to an end, Sega would try to reinvent itself for the next generation of consoles in order to compete with the 3DO, the PlayStation, and the future release of the Nintendo 64. Their new console would start off the 32-bit, 64-bit wars, and that would be the Sega Saturn. Released in 1995, the Sega Saturn would be one of the first consoles to support CDs and feature at the time realistic movie-like graphics. But even with games that can't be played on any other console, the Saturn would get screwed in the console wars by Sega for many, many reasons. The first problem with the Saturn, in May of '95, after being released on the day it was revealed to the public, the Saturn would piss off retailers after Sega claimed that they would launch the Saturn on September 2nd of that year, which is infamously known as Saturn Day. The second problem was the built-in multi-CPUs and the 6 processors that made games difficult for programmers to create games for. The third problem was that after the early launch of the Saturn, many third-party developers couldn't launch their planned titles in the US and either launch them in Japan or just switch to Sony's PlayStation. And after being launched at $400, when the PlayStation would be $300 and the Nintendo 64 would be $200, the Saturn would only sell 10 million consoles to date. But despite the problems that Sega had with this console, does that make it bad in terms of its games? Let's find out. First, let me just go over the console itself. There's a top loader on the top which requires a special memory card, which unfortunately I don't have. At first, I thought it was in order to play Genesis games, but it doesn't even fit. And then there's a watch battery that you have to put on the back of the Saturn. Besides the Game Boy, what kind of a console needs a battery to save games? But whatever you do, do not take it out if you've already saved games, because you will lose all your data. Trust me. And here are the controllers. The first one is the standard controller. It looks like the Genesis controller, but personally I just use the joystick controller. And it also gives you the option of using the D-pad or the joystick. Well, without further ado, let's review the Sega Saturn. Alright, now here's all the Saturn games that I own. I'm not going to review all the games, just the classics and personal favorites of mine. First to point out are the jewel cases. They're huge but awesome, and that's what makes them cool. Let's begin with Blazing Dragons.
Hello, little friend.
This was one of the first games that I played on the Sega Saturn. And in this game, you play as Flicka the Dragon.
Pavlov, where are you going? You're setting a terrible example at the beginning of the game. Bad, Moth, bad.
Who lives in a spoof world, Mighty Python, King Arthur type deal, and you're on a point-and-clicking adventure to become a knight in order to compete in a tournament to win the hand of Princess Flame.
We must do something, Flicka. I refuse to marry one of these flaming idiots.
Throughout the game, you have to collect items in order to progress in the game, along with a couple mini-games. The game also has a great voice cast. I think a couple of these voices you might recognize. Let's say from Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network.
What a nice fur coat, what a nice fur coat, and I'll say, I'm not wearing a fur coat! I am covered with rats!
You and your lousy song! Everything I feel is so true! Hey, you have a song?
The tournament is open only to Dragon Knights. You're not a knight. You're not even a squire.
No one break up my act!
I am not about to stand here and be given away as a prize in a contest.
And it wouldn't be a wormy pie if we didn't have lots of juicy wormies.
The game isn't long or challenging at all, and it takes you less than 2 hours to beat the game if you know what you're doing. Maybe next time I'll review this game as a whole, but overall, mostly it's just a good game with some good laughs. The next game is Bug. That's it, just plain Bug. Bug is a movie star and is playing a hero who must save his girlfriend from a giant queen spider. The gameplay is kind of like a slower version of Mario and Sonic put together. You stomp on bugs, you collect blue coins and other goodies. Same old, same old. Speaking of Sonic, there's a crossover level between him and the bug when they race each other. And by judging the speed of the bug himself, he would get his ass kicked by Sonic any day. There are a few cool things about this game, like when the bug climbs a 3D wall, which is pretty cool I guess at the time. And there are a few funny voices. Bug juice! The most frustrating thing about this game are the levels. They are long and slow. The enemy bugs are a pain in the ass. I haven't beaten this game yet, but from past experiences, Bug is simply okay, but can be a hard pain in the ass.
Bug juice! Bug juice! Bug juice! Bug juice!
Okay, the next game is Clockwork Knight. No, not Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Knight is based on toys coming to life. Doesn't that sound familiar?
You are a toy! You are a child's plaything!
But instead of the toys coming to life by themselves, they have to be woken up by Chelsea, who disappears mysteriously, and without her, the toys can never wake up. So you play as the toy Sir Tongarga D. Pepperogadouche III. Well, screw it, I'm just gonna call him Sergeant Pepper.
Not polite, point.
And you must fight your way through evil, demonic toys in order to bring Chelsea back. You collect watches to increase your time, you collect turning keys to increase your health, and you stab all the toys with your key sword. There's really not much to say about this game. It's just a typical side-scroller, and it was just another memorable launch title for the Saturn.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity. Farewell.
Okay, the next game is a PlayStation port favorite of mine, Croc, Legend of the Gobos. Okay, well you're Croc and... Whoa, what the hell? Where the hell is Croc's head? Wow, this has never happened before. The backgrounds are tripping balls and Croc is headless and glitchy. I feel like Croc has just entered the world of Doctor Who. I know what to do in a situation like this. Alright, there we go. Well anyway, you're Croc, and your mission is to save all the Gobos and their king from the evil Baron Dante. The game strongly resembles the PlayStation version, but there are a few differences. The camera in the Saturn version is too close to Croc, when the PlayStation version actually gave him a lot of space. Plus the PlayStation 1's controls are pretty good, and when you run and attack, it isn't all wavy like the Saturn version. In the Saturn version, it's almost like Croc's drunk, and it's really hard for him to move perfectly straight. Besides that, the music is the same, the gameplay is the same, but the camera and the controls really make this version on the Saturn a little difficult to play. But in its own right, it's still a decent game. Okay, the next game is Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. One of the few multiplayer games that I have for the Saturn, and it is one of the few games that was on the Genesis. Why? Well anyway, in comparison there's really not much to say, except for one thing which I'll explain later. And there's also no real explanation for this game because you pretty much already know what it is. You choose your character, reach the top of Shao Kahn's tower, kill everyone else, defeat Shao Kahn, win a prize. My favorite one to fight is Motaro. Good God, I remember him being so hard to beat. But now, I can beat him easily. Yeah, you don't fuck with Shiva.
Flawless victory.
But that can't be said for Shao Kahn. My God, what a sick mofo. The game has many other things like the cheat code bar to unlock characters, and a tournament to also win prizes. Now here is my only complaint. Wait for it. Wait for it. Nah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to rickroll you all. But in all seriousness here, it's the loading time. Yeah, that's right, the loading time. The loading time is so horrible when the Genesis version took like merely a second. Why, Saturn? Why are you degrading something easy like a loading time? But overall, besides that, it's a great fighting game, great memories, but like I said before, the worst loading time you can possibly imagine. Alright, Sega Saturn, enough of the bullcrap. It's time to get serious. Next is the Panzer Dragoon series. In the first game, a man on a dragon is killed after he tries to chase around another dragon. Before his death, he lands and tells a nearby hunter to stop another dragon from reaching a certain tower. Then you take control of the dragon and the hunter by shooting the hunter's gun at all that stand in their way. You shoot with the A, B, or C button, and when you want to use the dragon's missiles, you hold the A button and use the joystick to lock in all the enemies, then shoot. The gameplay is kinda like Star Fox. You shoot stuff, you get a high score, and you have to watch out for walls and all the other stuff that comes in your way. There is also a sequel to this game, but it is actually a prequel. Panzer Dragoon ZY, Zooey, oh, I don't know. It's the same game, but it's actually better controlled than the first game. There's also better enemies in this game to destroy, rather than mostly small things from the first game. The games have a beautiful layout, and graphics that are fantastic for the time. Not to mention that its soundtrack is probably one of the most memorable that the Saturn had to offer. For a series that broke amazing ground for what we see in games today, and in a series that really needs to continue to evolve, the Panzer Dragoon series is one of the few games to show off what the Sega Saturn can truly deliver. Okay, next we got Street Fighter, the movie, the game. What a mouthful. A game that basically combines the graphics of Mortal Kombat and the gameplay and characters from Street Fighter. The game starts with clips from the film, and it's actually pretty good. It's a little fuzzy, but I mean, it's better than that Sega CD piece of shit! The graphics are decent, and it has pretty cool digitized actor shots from the film. The loading time isn't bad compared to Mortal Kombat, it's decent, and the controls aren't too bad. It's kinda like the same feeling from Street Fighter 2, but it's just a little stiff. There's not much to say about this game, but it's just a decent fighting game from an awful video game movie.
You win.
Alright, the next game we got is Tempest. Well, sorry, I'll fix that in a minute. The next game is Tempest 2000. I guess if anything comes close for a video game being trippy, this is one of them. You're in space, and you play as a claw shooting enemy ships in these 3D shapes. You collect power-ups that help you shoot faster, and later you'll get help from a droid cube that assists you to help kill all the other enemies. Not to mention that its soundtrack has a pretty cool techno, electronic feel to it. It's a pretty good game, and it's pretty easy too. But the fact that this game was already on the Atari Jaguar, it kind of diffuses its purpose for being an original game on the Saturn. Alright, let me just fix this up a bit. Alright, now we got, if I can get it out. Alright, here we go. A triple game arcade classic pack. Virtual Fighter, Virtual Cop, and Daytona USA. Let's start with Virtual Fighter 2. You have 10 characters to select from, and... Whoa, wait a minute. Akira?
Akira! I don't know who that is! Ah!
Ready, go!
Playing Virtual Fighter 2 kinda makes me feel like I'm playing on the moon. You use the basic button A to block, B to punch, and C to kick, and when you want to use a special move, you hold A and B together. This game's alright, but it's just really slow, and personally, I'd rather stick to either Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. Alright, now we've got Daytona USA. Daytona! Oh my god, I can't get that out of my head!
Gentlemen, start your engine.
You drive with the C button and use the joystick to turn. Duh. The way you turn is a little stiff, but graphically it's okay. There's not really much to say about this, it's just an average racing game. And now we've got Virtual Cop. You're a cop, and you shoot with the A button, and to reload, you press the C button twice. Not much to say, just shoot, kill, and go on to the next level. All three of these games are pretty average arcade classics, but they really don't have any true replay value today. And now, it is time for the game that you've all been waiting for. You have two character storylines to choose from, but in the end you'll have to finish both or you won't complete the game. The children's names are Clarice and Ellie, and they both have certain dreams that are interrupted by the Nightmare King Wise Man.
Pajamas do scare me so.
No, not him. This is Wise Man. In order to save the children from having these nightmares, you play as Knights, a flying jester thingy who flies around collecting blue marbles and other goodies so that he can destroy the 5 colored barriers. And after you destroy them, you get a giant colored ball that you must bring back to your starting point. When you've collected all 5 of the balls, you go on to face the evil servants of Wise Man, and in each level there are certain patterns of how to destroy them. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I'll just show you a couple of my favorites. For instance, this one is Rila.
Well, it's not nice.
And all you do is knock into him and then spin around him. Pretty simple enough. And then here we got this card-throwing douchebag, and all you have to do is avoid his cards and attack him. Oh, and by the way, there's this stupid grading system. If you don't complete each level with a C or higher, you won't progress. The grading system is stupid beyond compare.
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
At last, after both characters have completed their 3 levels, you move on to Twin Seeds. This level is my favorite, mainly because it's at nighttime, and you play as the kids and not knights. Not to mention that its soundtrack is catchy and awesome. Finally, after completing Twin Seeds, you play as knights again, or I think it's the kids that transformed into knights, but you do battle with Wise Man. Next to the Panzer Dragoon games, Nights into Dreams is one of the best games that the Saturn has to offer. With beautiful colors, interesting gameplay, and a solid soundtrack, Nights into Dreams is one of my personal favorites that every hardcore video game fan needs to experience. Well, that's the Sega Saturn for you. It's not a bad console at all. The design of the console is really cool, and I love the name, Sega Saturn. I mean, come on! That's like the best name for a console. But it really just has a lackluster set of games for us to enjoy. Besides Knights, Panzer Dragoon, and a couple other original games, the Saturn just didn't have the strong software support that the PlayStation had. The Saturn, although being a cult favorite console of mine, it would contribute to Sega's hardware demise. But if it wasn't for the Sega CD and the 32X mistakes, the Saturn could have had the support that the Sega had with the Genesis. But it was just a console that was released too early, and with technology that was still new. The Saturn was just an overhyped mess. And it's really sad to say that. I mean, you can really tell that Sega tried really hard with the Saturn, but they just couldn't beat the PlayStation or the N64.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was my very first episode that I ever made for YouTube as the Dreaming Digital Dork of the Sega Saturn, and gosh, it was like 14 years ago, and it still brings back memories. I mean, 2011, like I said, was kind of the first time I really wanted to make videos for YouTube, and you know, it took a long time for me to actually get going with the whole collection crib thing, but back then it was the Dreaming Digital Dork, the cranky sleeper, video game nerd kind of guy, and just brings back a lot of memories. I mean, 2011 was like almost the like halfway point of the Sega Saturn's life, and look where we're at now, 2025, and I still love this console. I mean, I was able to, you know, download emulators from all certain Saturn games from Japan and Europe, and I mean, hell, Tim Curry's Frankenstein is on Sega Saturn. Just awesome stuff. So I hope you enjoyed the time travel of my very first episode of the of my whole YouTube career, so to speak. And it's really hard to make video game episodes. Like I did the N64 Switch controller a couple years back, and my very first pilot episode was involving Christmas nights. So yeah, the Sega Saturn definitely has its place in my heart for, you know, just collecting and reviewing in general, just because this thing just gets so much unwanted hate, and you know, I know it was kind of the beginning of the end for Sega, but you know, all these years later, there's just a huge fan following for it, even more than when it was back in 2011. I mean, heck, Panzer Dragoon Saga, baby. This was just, you know, when I finally was able to get this game a year later after the YouTube episode, you know, I was set for a few years, and I still get so many great memories out of this. And someday, I really hope to review this amazing video game. It's just a little hard to capture footage of it because when I do, some of the colors are a little off balance. It's really, really strange, but it just goes to show you that there's just so many memories of the Sega Saturn, and even from 2007 to 2011 to even today on the 30th anniversary of the Sega Saturn, it never gets old. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a part of this episode of The Collection Crib. I thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I promise I will be back soon. I'll see you next time.